Well, the recording is in progress. This is Andrew Williams Jr. I'm here with Dr. Jonathan Fields, as I understand it. So, Dr. Fields, are you Jonathan Fields?
Yes, sir. That's fine.
Wonderful. And as I understand it, we're going to be discussing today Breaking USA. So, with no further ado, I'll turn the floor over to you to walk us through what you'd like to share with myself and with others.
Fantastic. So USA Break-In is the national sporting organization for break-in. It recently got put into the Olympics for the Paris 2024 games as a provisional sport. We're looking to keep it in there permanently. I've been working with the team now. I just lost the screen share. Okay, there you go. Thank you. I've been working with a team of professionals down in Miami for about 25 plus years. USA, which makes up some of the board members of USA Break-In. We are a national nonprofit. It is a small board right now. We have 7 members and a few committees we're starting up, but we are growing rapidly. We have a 10-city tour that we're doing right now, and we're going to be having a national finals in Miami. We had an event in Miami a few weeks ago. We have one coming up in New York, and then we have Phoenix and Hawaii and LA and Portland and a couple other cities along the way as well. There, Denver and a few others. So we're looking for help with it. At the moment, the national there isn't a national governing body for break-in and the Olympics. The USOPC has decided to work with USA Dance now, which is a I guess product or a subsidiary of the WDSF, the World Dance Sport Federation. So we are not working on the Olympic end of it right now. We're looking to create more of a national sporting league, much like the NBA or the NFL, where in the future they'll come to us for Olympic athletes. But in the meantime, we want to work with dancers on a regular basis. The Olympics is only once every 4 years, and there's kids that need activities day in and day out. All the time. There's a lot of these athletes that we work with, and a lot of the professionals started, the whole sport or the whole dance of break-in, as you know, came from a very rough background. And we just want to make sure that there's opportunities for kids in the future and professional opportunities as far as coaches, judges, dancers, and competitors. So they will have more opportunity and be better, well represented than the previous generations before them. That's the overall gist of it. I'd be happy to answer any questions on specifics you have on it, or if you have any other suggestions, or if you'd like me to go on, I can. I just want to see if I can get some of your feedback on there.
Well, thank you so much. Let me better introduce myself to those in your team that may not know who I am. I'm Andrew Williams Jr., and I'm actually Googleable. Andrew Williams Jr. I've been a Goodwill ambassador since 2008. I'm 64 years old. So when I turned 50, I decided to shut down my offline life to establish a global footprint. I was able to do that by championing causes I care about that are bigger than myself. One of the first was called a global awareness campaign. That was initiated by Pet Corby out of the UK. Her intent was to educate at least 1 billion women on the need for there to be options for dealing with pregnancies that did not involve contraceptives. It involved more natural ways of doing things. In 2009, I was appointed as one of the first 200 Facebook ambassadors by GlobeCal.net, not because I asked for it, but because they recognized that my activities on social media had a real world impact. My own involvement on a global scale has been active since at least 2009. I was one of the members of the successful negotiating team that secured the presidency of Senegal to sponsor the United Nations Millennium Development Awards in 2009. So I've always had an understanding that as a global citizen, it's important to take all these things into consideration. I did send along my bio most recently on March 3rd of 2022, just a few months ago. I was appointed as a director of community relations for the Armo Williams Foundation, which is founded by attorney Joyce Williams, who heads up the Armo Williams attorney firm in Alexandria, Virginia. However, she has a global footprint as well. She's an advisor, legal advisor to the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Accra, Ghana. I'm able to bring her along aboard as well to support other causes I care about. I am going to briefly share my screen to give you a little bit of a taste of how I think we can find some similarities, Jonathan, of working together. So bear with me just a moment, please.
Yes, sir. Take your time. And I looked you up and I read about you. A very, very impressive career, very interesting. And I see you're also on the board for the Universal Hip Hop Museum. We've done a lot of work with members of Zulu Nation in the past. I've actually organized some of the breakdancing competitions and DJ'd some of them for some of the Zulu Nation anniversaries going back 22 years, 23 years.
Well, actually, that's where I'm going to start. But as far as the Zulu Nation is concerned, their spiritual advisor, his name is Makakubu Elbey, is also part of my team. He launched back in 2016 an organization called the World Media Coalition. So I was one of the founding members of that, but I've been working closely with him on a regular weekly basis to promote events around the world. But yes, I did bring to my screen the Universal Hip Hop Museum, because here in Los Angeles, just recently on March 9th, Tina Marie Tyler, worked closely to have right here in Los Angeles what's called a town hall, Hip Hop for Peace, because of course March 9th was the anniversary of the death of Biggie Small here in Los Angeles. But the intent is for us to become the cheerleaders, if you would, of reshaping the image that the media has created of the negative aspects of hip hop. In fact, I was first introduced to hip hop in 2012 by Silky D. Williams. She's the hip hop pioneer on the West Coast. She was the first female DJ here, and she was involved with Uncle Jam's Army, among others. And her daughter, DJ Spark, is the MC for DJ for Layla Hathaway, among others. But here in Los Angeles, I put up the screen 5 Points Youth Foundation. We're actually the West Coast organized, or we were the headquarters for the first meetings of the West Coast Organizing Committee for the Universal Hip Hop Museum. Next Friday will be April 29th. That's the 30th anniversary of the Rodney King riots that kicked off just 2 blocks away from our location. They're at Florence and Normandy. We're at Florence and Western. But we moved to this location 10 years ago this month because nothing had changed for the positive for the past 20 years in that same area. So next week, we'll actually be commemorating that event here in Los Angeles through the auspices of Tavis Smiley, and he has his own AM radio station, and Denise and KGLH radio station. So they're going to be broadcasting from 6:30 a.m. to 12 noon, right at the corner of Florence and Western. Jonathan, what we intend to do at Western and Florence, our location, is to also put up signs, put up information to commemorate that event so that we can pull together our community to get ready for what's coming up. But more relevant to what you are doing right now, I'm also an advisor on what's called the African Coaches League. And along with the founder of that, Mr. Ezra Kennedy, we're focused on working with youth to do much like what you're doing in the hip hop field, but also for athletes, particularly for those involved with soccer. Because this is based on the African continent, their focus is on engaging the youth to have a better pathway to success, other than what unfortunately they find is a glass ceiling when you have African students, soccer athletes from Africa, these smaller villages, trying to enter the European leagues or American leagues they run into the same glass ceiling as you may have found in breaking, where, of course, it's limited to those people at the top. So I'm just for sharing this with you, Jonathan, to say that I do have the capacity to help align our efforts together. And I'm here to do whatever I can to help what you get done better.
We very, very much appreciate that. And I love all the good work that you're doing. And we'd also like to see if there's any way we can help support any of the movements that you're involved with or anything that you're going, whether it just be through promotional or sharing or contributing content or whatever we can do to further some of your goals. It's beautiful work that you're doing, and it's necessary. And it's just nice to see good people doing this kind of good work. So we really appreciate it, and I'm sure we could find multiple ways to work together in the future. And on the medical side, I'm actually I'm sorry, sir. Did you have something to say?
No, please go ahead.
Oh, I was saying on the medical side, my full-time profession is actually I'm a full-time acupuncturist, and I practice functional medicine practitioner, herbal medicine, all sorts of traditional medicine like that. So I have a couple clinics here in South Florida, and that's what I do professionally outside of my entertainment purposes. So if there's anything maybe I can help on that end, whether it be donate expertise or maybe services down the road or whatever, I'm also very open to connecting and working on that end.
Well, the most important thing I have to ask is your investment of time to involve yourself with some of the activities that we're doing. So you'll actually become, aware of who's at the table. For example, just this morning, one of our key contributors, her name is Prophet Aniyamu Cox, and she is a board certified nurse. She also deals with a hospital with homeopathy services. She deals with mental health services, but she's also on the board of what's called the 400 African American Commemoration Commission that was established under President Trump. And she's working closely with cities, particularly Black settlements and cities, townships and cities around the United States that are addressing some of the same issues that you are from a medical standpoint, but also from a standpoint of empowering our youth. But here in California, I'm also on the advisory board of an organization called the Ed Fu Foundation. I'll send this information out to you by your email, but they have an intake form where the request is that you specifically describe what it is that you are doing that you need assistance with, so we can identify the pain points and work forward from there. And the idea is that we can actually begin to provide some humanitarian benefits from our commercial activities. So we do have corporate sponsorship opportunities available too. But again, the idea is, well, to define what does that mean? And how do we benefit from making that happen? What agreements need to be put into place? So my interest is more in setting up the infrastructure for us to work with. And then I like to take a page out of the Donald Trump book and not spend money on advertising, but get free publicity from promotions about doing good works. After all, publicity is only publicizing good works done well.
I love that you brought all that up. From an acupuncture standpoint, you may even know this better than I. The first community clinics in the United States that were helping people with that were pretty much run by the Black Panthers in the Bronx, up in Harlem. And that's a history that's kind of been forgotten and overlooked. And I think there's a massive need for this type of community care and letting people in underserved communities know that there are options besides the pharmaceuticals and the typical American diet. My clinical research for my doctorate was actually on diabetic neuropathy, and I don't have to tell you what that's doing to the community. So not just the neuropathy end of it, but diabetes and the food quality and the dietary thing. So one of my long-term goals is actually to be able to work with some kind of organization and maybe open up small community healthcare clinics and get other practitioners such as myself that may have not had the same opportunities, but are good at what they do, but may not be business orientated, to help them get startup funding to open or work with existing small clinics where they can help serve these kinds of communities and bring in this kind of healthcare at a relatively low cost, knowing that from a preventative medicine side, we could be saving the country, I mean, billions or trillions as far as, wasted funds that go into unnecessary medications or surgeries or testing when a lot of this stuff can be addressed, with natural stuff, whether it be herbs or dietary changes. And sometimes not everybody's willing to change, but there are, I think, a lot of families and are a lot of people that are willing to listen. They just haven't been exposed to the truth, and nobody's been able to give it to them straight. And a lot of times when you go to the doctors, they talk down to patients, especially with minorities and especially with women. They don't treat them how they should. And even, I mean, even as I had experienced this myself as a young man. I'm only 43 now, but 10, 12 years ago, I went through a health crisis, which kind of led me into the field I'm in now. And the doctors, they don't give you information on how to help yourself. It's all about more drugs, more tests, and that doesn't always work for everybody. So I love to hear that you're involved with some community healthcare like stuff, and I would love to continue on those discussions to see how we can possibly work together and meet some goals and just hopefully help a lot of people.
Well, what I'd ask you to do is to take that off your bucket list and put it on your to-do list,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And the idea is the minute that we are able to demonstrate to our kids that we're actually walking the talk, then we'll get their attention. So I'd have to ask you, Jonathan, to be the one to say, well, this is what my dreams are. This is what my aspirations are. This is what I do best. This is what I like to share with others. And that be the model that we then take to our children and say, well, this is what you need to do because this is what we were doing.
Yes, sir. I will put it all in writing with a basic mission statement of kind of what I'm looking to accomplish with that, and I'll send you my professional CV, and we'll see how we can move forward on that end. But that's fantastic. I'm very happy to hear that. I have another paper that I actually have not published yet. It's called the obesity epidemic. The greatest threat to America's national security, and I have that done. I don't know, a few months now. I just haven't had the chance to look for a place to publish it, but maybe that's something we could talk about as well. And perhaps you could help kind of point us in the right direction, or maybe that could be one of the pivotal things we could kind of base some of this stuff on.
Well, yes, yes, and yes is all I'll ever tell you.
Fantastic.
But more,
So,
but more specifically, I did send an invite out to Prophet Cox. If she's available, she'll join us now. But secondarily, I'm involved with a Dr. Yawanda Okaniera. I'm gonna, mangle her name, but she's very deeply involved in the medical field. But what she does is she provides translation services for healthcare workers, primarily because she's from Nigeria, throughout all the Nigerian dialects. But she has recruited a network of healthcare providers from multiple nations and countries around the world. And they're moving forward now to find ways to spread their message wider. So I would again suggest these are the kind of people I'd like to connect with you to let you find your way. And then we can all find ways to support each other going forward.
fantastic. That sounds great. I'm so happy we got the opportunity to take this time and to speak and to connect. And I'm very thankful to Lisa, and I'll pass on the message to her, the gratitude for putting us together. And then I'll send you a little more information on the USA Break-In, and we'll see if you have any suggestions or ideas or ways we can move forward on that. We're just looking to build our network on that. It's a small organization for now. We don't have any massive corporate funding. We're working on some things, but our main goal is to kind of just organize all these national promoters that we're working with together. That's been, as you know, in the hip hop community, one of the problems we've had over the last 30, 40 years is everybody's about me, and not really looking at the bigger picture which is the next generation of kids. Like we've had our time where the last 3, 4 generations basically had their time to shine at it. And now it's what can we leave the next generation? And obviously I think we agree about the quality of the music and the negativity and the images surrounding it today compared to what it started with is really not, I think, the outset that most of the pioneers and most of us as parents or community members would like to see moving forward. And not that we can stop it, but if there's anything we can do to at least expose some people to the positive aspects and provide some opportunities that can still help and benefit a lot of people, I think.
I'll be of another 10 or 15 minutes. What's your schedule like?
I got a call in about 10 minutes or so. So, but yeah,
Okay, then.
I'm
Pro-
happy to stay
Well,
on.
Prophet Cox is here now. So then I'd like Prophet Cox. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Jonathan Fields. He's an acupuncturist in South Florida. He has two clinics there, but he's come aboard specifically to talk about breaking and involving. Well, I'll let him do a Hollywood do-over. But first, Prophet Cox, please take at least 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and then perhaps we can find ways to go forward. We have a limited amount of time, so thank you for taking this time, Prophet Cox.
Okay, sorry for the picture. It would be helpful if I would have known, are you PhD doctor, a medical doctor? My area is health and wellness, preferably traditional, complementary, alternative, and integrative medicine. And and I just do a lot of different stuff in that area. I do some other stuff, but it's pretty much that, and I'm pretty eclectic in how I do it and who I do it with. So can I know, since we only have a few minutes, how do we connect, or what do we connect in what area?
Sure, absolutely. Prophet Cox, thank you so much for taking the time. Number one, it's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm looking forward to hopefully working together in the future. So my doctorate and my master's degree are both in acupuncture and Eastern medicine. I also have a
Cool.
bachelor's in health sciences. I'm a functional medicine practitioner. I do some IV therapies, vitamin injections, PRP, and some of that kind of stuff as well. So I'm working in the integrative field in South Florida, a lot of herbal medicine, like the Eastern medicine stuff. So you can see actually some of the herbal stuff behind me there. So I'm open to connecting on that. I just shared with Dr. Williams some of my ideas about some community care stuff that I'd like to get into. And he encouraged me to put it into writing, which I will do soon and share with you as well. The other thing that he had brought us on to speak about is USA Breakin'. We are a national nonprofit that we're looking to become the national sporting organization for breaking, for breakdancing. I am the development director. I've been involved in these types of events for 25 years now. We actually have an event coming up in Miami. It's our 25th anniversary, and we have a 10 city. Thank you. We have a 10 city tour that we're doing right now. So it's a small national nonprofit. We have members. We have somebody in the Bay Area, DC, 3 or 4 here in Miami, and Portland, and a couple other places. But we're growing, and we're looking to provide opportunities for kids and get the proper exposure for the sport. There's an issue right now with the Olympics. The break-in whole thing, it got basically handed over to a ballroom dancing organization, which is kind of in charge of it all. So in the future, we're looking to kind of unseat them and get the national governing body status. But in the meantime, we're kind of working on just building a national league and trying to get into after school care programs and build up the sport in the US and let people know it is viable for kids, and it is something that parents should be supporting, and has to do with the positive aspects of the hip hop culture and not necessarily involved with what we see on TV and unfortunately with some of these the stuff on the radio nowadays. So we're looking for any help or support or even advice, suggestions, or networking that we can with the organization, and I will send you some information about the organization as well. But I'm open to hearing any feedback from you in regards to what we just spoke about.
Well, one of my favorite things, and I'm sure you've heard of this, is Young Living. So the Young Living products, I love to be able to get with the sports folks around their joints or injuries or whatever.
Mhm.
I've used that. I have a son with special needs and so forth. They didn't think he'd live to see his first birthday, but he's 35 now. So I know that you have some products over. We can work them into the system so that there's some complementary and alternative to just always the pharmaceutical is really mine. But I also trained, I have a lot of training in healing strategies around historic trauma and even present day, like we have trauma going on right now. So that's those two areas.
Great, and that's really nice to hear. And yes, that's one of my big things. The alternatives to, I think we were speaking earlier, to all the pharmaceuticals and the surgeries. Obviously, there's a time and a place, but people need to know that they have options. Number one, I do have some training and some specialization in the mental health field, as well as far as the Eastern medicine side of it goes. I also I'm a martial arts instructor. I've been in martial arts my entire life, been teaching for about 18 years. I teach Tai Chi and Qigong and
Nice.
mindfulness meditation and that kind of stuff. So I'm happy to collaborate any way we can there as well.
Well, that's good. I have a number of people that we all kind of do this kind of thing in terms of healing. So mental health. And I just have a whole list. I could do a whole university out of my library. I'm sure you can too, looking at your books. So Reiki, I was so obsessed. I did Reiki Master 2 times anyway, went through it and went through it again. But the healing touch, therapeutic touch, sound medicine, all the lists, well, because they all kind of just work all
Mhm.
together. And then
Right.
because of the profit part is that I am called actually to be a prophet, but along with that comes the equipment of being highly intuitive. So some of my best healing work comes just strictly from aligning with the person and tapping into what their needs are. So somebody called it, I think Jane Houston called it shamanic. If you know her, she does some different works. And so I was at one of her workshops. And so she said I was a natural born shaman. If I would have been able to grow up in Africa or one of the indigenous places, I would have went into training, she said, but because I was not, then I'm out here just doing whatever I do. So even though I have a lot of training, my best work has been simply tapping in. So
That's amazing. I love to hear that. And even with the Eastern arts and the Eastern healing things, a lot of that actually did come out of the Middle East and Africa and Egypt as well,
yeah,
into Tibet and then further down the road. So there are a lot of similarities, obviously just small cultural differences, but I think the root is all the same.
and it's
Well, I
tapping
wanted
in.
to,
But anyway, go
Dr.
ahead.
Excuse me, I wanted to know, Prophet Cox, every 2 weeks you have a standing show that I
Yeah.
host. I'm wondering if we might be able to invite Dr. Fields to be one of your upcoming guests. So he'll have a chance to share his knowledge and information among our network.
Absolutely. And so, because I have a whole group of folks who do similar things. I don't know if we would do a panel or the whole show, or I know sometimes on the programs we have one presenter and another, but all, like he mentions, like all the different areas that he's working in, and I would like to be able to impress. What I'd like to see is equity in healthcare, so that even the institutional and government levels, that they recognize this is not just, airy fairy people out there doing stuff, that this should really be an option, and people are allowed to have consent for that. So let's talk about what's the best way to do it, but to show that we do have, even Elsie the other day, she does holistic and natural stuff as well. So, but absolutely, Dr. Fields, I'm always excited to meet other healers.
That would be a great honor for me. I have a good friend actually that might be, when you brought up the equity thing, popped into mind. He's actually an African American doctor. He's one of the cardiologists over at Duke University, and he's working on a grant right now. Or actually, he was awarded a grant and doing research, something to do with equity in the healthcare field. So I would love to introduce you all as well in the future. But he's one of our closest family friends for, I don't know, probably close to 30 years now as well.
Okay. Can we do that? I wonder if we could maybe do a panel and introduce it, and then have.
Yes,
And
yes, and yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So actually, because on the 3rd of, I think it's the 3rd of May, I have someone who really, they're a minister actually, and they were concerned because so many people were trying to do, opting for a faith healing instead of, and that may be seem like more of a lightweight kind of thing, but it is a deal that, how do you weave all these different things in, and knowing that there's some other strategies. People who say, well, I'm depending on my faith, may need to go and get some vitamins. They may need to go, they may need to go and get some Reiki. So I don't know if we could put it there as sort of more of a panel. That would strengthen the May just as a beginning. And then Dr. Fields, you could come back with some different areas, because there are people that do some of the things that you do, but then you do some different things and other people do some different things. And so what about, can we start on May 3rd with a panel? Is that possible? And I would really like to meet this person who already has the grant. That would strengthen the whole form that we present. It would strengthen to know that there's someone who's actually been able to get funding.
Yeah, and once again, he's a medical doctor up at Duke,
Yeah.
so that carries the some weight with that as well. I will speak to Dr. Jackson in regard to that. He's a good friend with Larry Jackson, and I will see if I could copy him in on some emails with you
Yeah.
all. But May 3rd is a good day for me. That's one of my off the clinic days. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays are usually the good days for me. So I'm on the East Coast, so just let me know what time, and I will make myself
11.
available. 11 a.m.
11
your time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
I think
yes,
it's
that's what it said.
8, yeah.
And so I'll keep this person for the faith piece because we'll weave into, that's one of the methods. And so, but there are some other things that they need to know about, that faith thing, if they get people who are trained in different modalities. Because NIH actually did some research at one point on prayer and all that, but I think people kind of take it out of context sometimes, but that's just my opinion.
Correct. Kevin, give me 1 second. I'll be right with you.
Yeah,
Dr. Williams,
I was about to let you know.
Prophet
We are going to
Cox.
transfer. Yeah, we are going to transfer, but Prophet Cox, what you didn't know is that I actually was awarded an honorary doctorate.
1 second.
But for you, excuse me, Jonathan, Andrew is okay, or the honorary Andrew, but thank you so much for your time. I'll follow up with an email and we'll take it from there. I'll let you get back to your day.
Beautiful. Y'all have a
Not
wonderful
like an honorary
afternoon.
doctorate. I actually got the books for it, but the school closed down. So, okay. Take care. I have another meeting as
Y'all
well.
have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
connect us
Okay,
so that
thank
we
you.
can keep going, Andrew.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
I know what to do. Bye.
Beautiful.
I know you do.